Hi, I'm Dr. Vicki Stonegale. I'm a family nurse practitioner and I am an associate professor at Frontier Nursing University in their family nursing program. I'm also Region 4 director for the Florida Nurse Practitioner Network. I'm also the past first vice president of legislation for the FNPN, and I am the president for the South Florida Council of Advanced Practice Nurses in Broward County. I thought it would be really important to give you some insight on how to develop a poster and a podium presentation if you choose to start submitting abstracts for conferences. There's a lot of guidelines to follow, a lot of really good tips and points that I can give you, and I'm going to go ahead and give you some great information. The other thing I will do at the end of the presentation is give you very specifics on what the Florida Nurse Practitioner Network is going to require for your abstract submission for their conferences. The first thing I want to talk about is professional appearance, because not only does your poster or your slides presentation represent you professionally, but you also need to be representing yourself as professional. You should dress in business professional attire, like a business suit or nice dress pants and a sweater or a shirt, something like that. Males should be in a, either a business suit, or you can also just have a nice pair of pants on with a dress shirt and a tie. You should not have any jeans or khaki pants or any pants that look old and worn. No tennis shoes, no flip-flops or loud shoes. And what I mean by loud shoes is bright orange shoes or lime green shoes or yellow shoes. You should be having something very subtle that goes with your professional business attire. You should also act professional during the presentation. What I mean by that is you should not be talking about your poster or up on the podium doing, eating food, drinking unless you're taking a sip of water, obviously, or any chewing gum. All of those things are unprofessional. So we're going to start out talking about what is a compelling poster. And the learning objectives for this are that at the conclusion of the presentation, you should be able to discuss best practices for poster presentations. You should be able to explain guidelines for developing a poster for a presentation, and you should be able to apply best practice recommendations in disseminating presentations of your own work. So, what exactly is the purpose of a poster? Well, when you've done a poster, you're doing it because of something that's interesting to you. So, you may want to share your research findings or some project you have done with a colleague, or even others in the field. And maybe people who are going to look at your poster don't even have any idea about what the topic is, but they're very interested in it, and they'll stand at the poster and talk to you about it because it's something they never have seen or heard about before. It allows the audience to really see a clear and concise information in regards to the topic, and it allows you to network with others that have similar interest in the topic. So people who have already done studies on this or have already maybe done posters or presentations themselves may come up and talk to you about your poster, and maybe there's some things in your poster you have that they did not even think about. So networking is really important with this, and it also allows others to consider doing further research if they're interested in the topic. You might look at a topic and say, wow, that's really interesting. I would like to do something with that. I'd like to research that. I'd like to delve into that and present my poster on something like that. So the poster should tell your story. You need to be present at your poster and be prepared to answer any questions, and you need to let the poster tell the story of your work. Your poster should stand alone. So what I mean by that is you should be able to have somebody walk up to your poster, look at your poster, and understand what it's about. It's going to tell the story about what kind of work you have done. And you want it to be informative, and you want your audience to learn from it. Think about, what am I going to tell my audience? What do I want them to get from this and learn from my poster and the information that's on my poster? So your poster should generate interest to the meeting attendees. You should be able to have a 5 to 10 minute discussion with them, a very meaningful discussion. They don't have a lot of time. They're going to walk by your poster. They're going to browse at your poster. They're going to ask you some questions. And your poster should have maybe new information for them on it that they want to learn about or ask about. It might be a literature review of something you have studied before and they're interested in looking at that literature review. It could be something where you've been expanding on other research you've done. So you want to start the process early and you want to plan ahead. This is really crucial to posters, and this is why AANP and the National Organization of Nurse Practitioner Faculties, FNPN, this is why we ask you to start your poster early and apply early for the poster, because it gives the people that are reviewing it time to really delve into it and to be able to give you some crucial feedback. You need to prepare your abstract for the topic you're going to present. Look at what date that abstract is due, and you're going to need to allow time for peer review and editing, and we're going to go more in depth into this as we get farther into the presentation. Every conference that you apply to present a poster is going to have very specific guidelines on what you need to do for that poster, so you need to make sure that you look at those very carefully. Some of them are, what are the physical poster requirements and what is that acceptable size and format of your poster? What category are you going to be looking at? Education, evidence-based research, quality improvement. So you need to look at their categories. A lot of them will want you to match your abstract to the actual objectives for the conference. And then how is it going to be displayed? Is it on an easel? Is it a tabletop? Are they going to have a presentation board? That'll give you an idea on what kind of poster you need to have printed. Poster size is another thing that they're going to look at, as I said, and that depends on the conference requirements. Some of the common sizes are a 36 by 48, a 36 by 60, a 42 by 56. You don't want it too small on the large mounting boards. So if you've ever been to a conference before and you've seen those big, huge mounting poster boards, you don't want your poster to be stuck in the middle in a little small square and you've got all this poster board around it. It looks very unprofessional. You know, I like to do my posters where I have it fill the whole board, or at least, you know, a really large portion of the board, because it just looks more professional and your attendees can see it a lot easier. So when you're printing it, you want to make sure that you're printing it in a large form. You want to make sure that it's horizontal positioning. You don't want a vertical poster. I've never seen a vertical poster at a conference. So you want to make sure it's horizontal positioning. And Microsoft PowerPoint is really the best to use for poster development. You are able to change your fonts, you're able to change your colors, you're able to change anything on there that you want to do, and it's really great. Now, I've done posters before in Google, in a Google slide, and then I've tried to upload it into a PowerPoint and it distorts it sometimes. So there's an issue with that. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll develop my poster in PowerPoint, and then a lot of the poster companies for actually printing want it done in a PDF. So I'll do it in a PowerPoint, convert it to PDF, and if I need to save it in a Google Drive, I'll go into Google Drive and pull it into Google Drive as an upload document. But I do develop it in Microsoft PowerPoint. I think it's a lot cleaner, and I think you have better things to work with in there. The actual title of your abstract needs to be the same title that you put on your poster. If you don't do that, they will kick your poster back. So when you do get acceptance, poster acceptance from the organization that you've submitted to, they will tell you your title must be the same as on your abstract submission. The title on a poster should be 70 to 72 point size. That makes for a really good poster title. Your author name that goes also on the poster is going to be, and your credentials should be 48 point size, and it goes directly under the title. And then your affiliation or your university name under the authors, and that should be 36 point size. And I will show you some examples of this. One of the things some people do is they put their logo for their university on their slides, and that's fine to do. But you need to make sure you follow these point sizes on your actual title of the poster, on the heading of your poster. Your headings are going to guide your poster. You want them to be in 48-point size. And this is because you want somebody to look at your poster and be able to say, oh, there's the background. I want to look at this. This is the results. I want to look at this. And they can just flow right through your poster. And it's really going to vary depending on whether you did research or you did a literature review or you're talking about a case study. But it helps them to find your main points, and it gives your poster a very clean look. Usually what's including in your heading is your introduction, your background, your objectives or your aims or your problem, your goal, your research question if it was researched. Some people actually put the actual abstract on their poster. So your headings are going to be according to what you've developed in your poster. Some of the headings need to be thought about as in PICO form, and PICO really frames your research question if you've done actual research. PICO is your problem, your intervention, your comparison, and your outcome. So when you're looking at PICO and the population and the problem, you're looking at the characteristics or the health issue of interest. For the intervention or the exposure, you're looking at what drug, what surgery did they do, what policies, what community programs, what was the intervention in the exposure. The comparison, maybe there was no intervention, maybe there were common practice groups, maybe there were control groups. And then what was the outcome of your, so PICO is something that you really need to follow if you're doing research, but it should be in your poster if you've done actual research. Your methods section. Methods is another heading. What is your sample description? What was your study design? What was your study instruments? What was your analysis of the data? Do you have state of the science? Do you have a conclusion or an implication? Do you have the results, the conflicts of interest, and the references? All of these should be included. So you've got a lot of headings that you would put on a poster. Now, you may name state of the science something different. You may name your conclusions or your implications something differently. But you should have a conflict of interest there, and you should have at least 10 references on your slides or on your poster, excuse me. Text and fonts are really important on your poster because if you do not do your text and your fonts appropriately, your poster is going to look a mess. You can't have this heading being this size and another heading being a different size and the actual text being a different size. Your poster will look a mess and nobody will come and look at it, and they will talk about your poster when the conference is over. So you want to make sure that your text size is 30-point size. I have it here. You can see where I have 30-point size in yellow, and then you can see below where I have it in 20 points. So 30-point sizes for your text. You should bullet your points, and text size is adequate if you can read it from a 3-foot distance. So somebody should be able to stand back 3 feet from your poster and be able to look and be able to actually read the writing on your poster. Your references should be in 20-point size, and that's why I have reference in 20-point and then the yellow 20-point size. It shows you the differences here. And your fonts, most of the time we use sans serif or just serif for the fonts for the poster. For bullets, you can use sans serif, Arial, Helvetica, Avante-Garde. These are some of the very common ones that people do use. And then for your text blocks, you should use Times Roman or Palantino. Those look really, really nice on a poster. We're going to talk about the color of the poster, and the color of the poster is really important because you want your poster to pop. You want to use colors with caution because too much or too many can reduce the effectiveness of your poster, but you want your poster to be nice and clean and pretty, and you want it to be compelling, and you want it to be just not overwhelming and not expressing like sadness. So your color combination is really, really important when you're picking. I'm sure you've gone to conferences and you've seen really boring posters. They're just white background with black lettering. They have no pictures, they have nothing. They're just blah. Make your poster pop. Make it look nice. Make it where somebody wants to walk by and say, wow, this really is pretty. Browns, tans, reds, yellow are warm colors. They appear more active, they evoke energy and happiness, but they can be overwhelming. So you have to be careful on how you use them and where you use them in your poster. Cool colors such as blue greens, blue violets, they're soothing and calming, but they can express sadness. So you have to be careful how you use them in your poster also. So think about, what you're going to do. I think one of the best ways is go look at Google posters, some individual posters and see what colors people have used and what really kind of sets the tone for you when you look at a poster. And I think that'll help you a little bit. You don't want to have your poster have many different colors. So I would pick 2 to 3 colors. You could do blue, you could do white, you could do yellow, or you could do black, and you could do red, or you could do white. But you want to make sure that you're limiting to 2 to 3 color. And I would pick dark colored letters. It is really very difficult on a poster to see white letters unless you have a really good black background or a dark green background or a dark blue background. But we do like you to use light colored backgrounds because it does look a little better when you use a light colored background. But not all people do that. And they can still make their posters look very, very clean and very nice. I mean, you should really take your poster and look at it on a projector before you present it, okay, and make sure that it looks good. This is a chart I found on Color Psychology Guide, and this is when we were talking about, that blue makes you feel warm, and different colors make you feel powerful, like black. Black is an indicator of strength and professionalism, and pink is very sensitive, and red is confident. They always say wear a red suit if you're going for a job interview because it embraces confidence. Green is, stability and equilibrium. Navy is responsibility, integrity, trust. So there's a lot of colors that you can pick here, and you can see some of these companies that have had these logos with these different colors here. You're also going to need to think about, do I need to put photos on my slide for my poster? Do I need to do tables? Do I need to do graphics? High resolution images are needed for clarity. So you really need to do a high resolution image, and you want to accent your poster color. So don't put it the same color as your poster. Make sure you've changed the colors a little bit. If you're using photos, they usually require consent. They could be professional or personal. Maybe you've asked me if you can use something that was on my poster and I give you permission, but you still need to make sure you get consent and you put that on your poster. Most of the photos that you get online will require some type of consent unless you can find free ones. Let your graphics tell your story and highlight your key points. So as you look at the pie chart here, this really kind of tells the story that China had 29.4 and Japan had 3.5%. You can see it very, very clearly. When you look at the bar graph on the right, you can see that this is very compelling. It shows you the highs and the lows. So you want your colors to pop on here too. You don't want to put maybe, gray on your bar graph because it's going to look very boring on your poster. So the pink or the greens or the yellow, the oranges or something like that will pop. And usually 4 to 6 figures relating to your conclusion or your main points is sufficient enough. You don't want to overwhelm your poster with charts and graphs. To organize your poster, there is a very vertical flow. So you want to make sure that everything is going vertically. People have a tendency to look at your poster from left to right. You want up and down columns, and you want the audience to be able to say, I'm going to be able to look at this and it's going to flow very easily for me as my eyes go across it. You want to guide with arrows or some other cues or something like that so you can guide them into something. So maybe you've got a block there and you have an arrow that's going to lead to a conclusion. So guide with arrows or any other cues that you can think of to do. Printing is really important for your poster. You want to make sure you use a professional printing company, or if you know a printer who does this. I have used posterpresentations.com for years. They're wonderful. They do an excellent job. Their turnaround time is great. They will tell you if something doesn't look right in your poster. And this is where I'm going to say to you, you need to proof before you print. I think the most unprofessional thing on a poster is when I walk up to a poster and things are misspelled on the poster. Spelling and grammar errors are not acceptable on posters. They're not acceptable on any presentation you do, whether it's a slide presentation, you're presenting Podium, whatever. Spelling and grammar errors are just not a good thing to do. So I always have someone else read my work. I make my husband read it. I'll send it to a colleague to read it. They pick up stuff that I didn't pick up. So make sure you're doing that. And like I said, use a reputable printer. Um, and you might want to get poster hands out, which are good for your attendees. Sometimes they ask you if you're going to put them out. Now, you could have like posterpresentations.com do them, or you could print them from, Kinko's or something like that. But sometimes it's good for the attendees to have poster handouts, and that way they can see your poster. But I will tell you, most posters are online now. So the conference will give you the ability to go online and look at that poster, and then you can just print it from home or something like that. You might also be asked to do an e-poster. We did this a lot during COVID because conferences were virtual, and they asked us if we would be able to still do our presentations, do our posters, and we would be available for questions, like for a 3 to 5 minute video discussion, and then questions that maybe the group would have afterwards. But we narrated our posters a lot, and then they put them up on the website, and people could go in and listen to the poster. And then if you were doing it live, like an e-poster live, you would have time for questions and answers. How do I transport my poster? Well, this blue tube on the right I have, and it's been a godsend to use to protect my posters when I've sent them. But I also love the cloth ones. They can fold in your suitcase. They come out looking pretty good. You can see on the right corner here that my poster at AANP last year has a cloth um, texture to it. It was a little bit wrinkly, but you could pull it really tight. I think they're really nice. I also like the shininess of a poster. I think they look really nice and clean when it has more of a shine to it. So I'm not sure I would do a cloth again, but that's fun. That's my opinion, and I know a lot of people who do them. You can order online from Poster Printer, and they'll kind of guide you with do you want cloth? Do you want the shiny background? Do you want a dull background? So, but transporting it is going to be your big thing. I have gotten to the point where, because of restrictions on airplanes, I don't take that tube anymore. One of the reasons is, number one, I got on the plane and left it sitting at my chair at the gate. Had to run out and get it. The other thing was that I have left it in the overhead bin before and had a panic mode and had to get them back on the plane to get it. So I have gotten into shipping it directly to the hotel. I get the tube, I go over to Kinko's, I get a tube, and I ship it directly to the hotel. They usually have a FedEx in the hotel. They'll accept your poster, and you get there, you go there, you pick it up, and it's ready to go for you. So that's a really great way to transport. It's not inexpensive to ship it to the hotel, but it's worth it if you don't want to carry it on. So this is an example of a poster I did when I was working on my PhD at University of Alabama at Birmingham. And they required us to use their own poster template with their logo on that for the school. So that's why this one is in dark green. And you can see I have the heading, which is bigger than my name, which is bigger than the title for the university there on the top. And then I used a darker, dark green, background for my headings, and then black in the actual lighter green, so it would pop a little bit. Now, this was not a research project that was completed, so I was talking to the audience about what my problem was, what my theoretical framework was, the purpose of the study. I was doing it on female fitness competitors, and I put some pictures in here, got permission from those individuals to post those, and then had research questions and methods and lit review map. Now, I did not include references on this because they did not want us to. They wanted us to make sure that we got content in here and they were not looking at the references. So I did have a lit review map here that I could do just to put some things in here, and that was our requirement, which is why it's set up this way. This is a poster that I did with my daughter at the June 2025 AANP conference. And this is something we did on some clinical things that we were really interested in and that we were discussing about screening tools and pharmacological management and how we treat hormone imbalance in women. And so as you can see, the title's very bold. Our names are there with our universities next to it. And we've just have some different titles that we talked about. We did an abstract, our objectives, the definition of perimenopause. We talked about how we transition into menopause, the incidence and prevalence. And I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but as you can see, we have some screening and screening tools and what we did pharmacological management and conflicts of interest in our references. We have some pictures in here and we have referenced those pictures, so we do not have any issues with that. This is another poster that we did at AANP a few years back, and here's another one that was more clinically related where we talked about mast cell disorders. We talked about what it is. So this is really something that we were educating the public on, the clinicians on. What is mast cell disorder? What is the classification? What is the state of the science in the literature we reviewed? Some of the risk factors, the clinical features, what are the fears of patients, what labs do you order and how do you manage this, and then our references. And then we have a photo here that's been referenced. So you can see this poster is a little bit different. This is a very informative poster to educate someone about mast cell disorders. So the more strikingly visual your presentation is, the more people will remember it. And the more importantly, they're going to remember you. And I love this saying because it is true. I can still think of really bad posters I've seen, and I can think of really good posters I've seen. And when we think about going through posters that are submitted for Florida Nurse Practitioner Network, we think about other posters that we've seen that were not good and some that were, and we talk about them. So they aren't forgetting, you're not forgetting those. They're very visual to you. And I added this slide because I just love it. And I think that's how you feel after you've gotten your poster done, have you've done the research or you've done whatever you need to do for your poster, you feel like this. So now we're going to go on and talk about podium presentations. And a podium presentation is where you would be asked to go up on stage and you would present your information in front of a large audience. So now we're switching from you standing at a poster in the conference center where you're going actually up in front of people and presenting. The learning objectives for the poster presentation is that at the end of this discussion, you really should be able to understand and discuss the best practices for podium presentations. You should be able to explain the guidelines for developing a podium presentation and applying best practice recommendations in order to be able to disseminate your own work. So why would I choose to do a podium or versus a poster, or a poster versus a podium? And it is really personal preference. If you're not comfortable speaking in front of a large group of people or a room of 50 people or a group of 250 people, then you need to choose a poster, because that way you're just one-on-one with whoever's coming by and you're talking. But some people have stage fright, and if you're not comfortable speaking, then I would not choose a podium. You choose a podium because you want to share your research findings or your project with others. You want to inform them, and it allows sharing concise information about the topic. You want more control over what the audience can focus on, and with a podium, you do the talking, and with a poster, it does the talking for you. So think about why you would want to do one versus the other. With a podium presentation, you're going to have a call for abstracts. So AANP, National Organization Nurse Practitioner Faculties, ACNM, Florida Nurse Practitioner Network are going to have a call for abstracts. And this is usually a conference, and you want to look at what their objectives are for the conference and then think about a topic that fits that theme. Who is going to be your audience? And where is the conference located? Is it a local conference? Is it a state conference? Is it national? Is it international? You want to think about where the location is going to be, what your audience is going to be, and then what the topic is. I really need to caution you on predatory conferences and journals. If you are not sure if this conference is legitimate, then you need to be asking other colleagues who do a lot of presentations if it is, and you need to research it. Predatory conferences are out there. They'll send you things and say, I got one yesterday. Would you present your research that you've completed in Germany? Well, I didn't complete research on the topic that you're asking me to do it on. You'll notice that there's a big difference in predatories. All the papers will be published in high impact factor journals, so you need to know about them and you need to know how to avoid them. And if you're having trouble, you need to make sure to look at these high impact factor journals, and you need to see if they're a legit journal, okay? Because they will come out and they will try to get you, and they'll say, "Oh, come present at China. You've been accepted in China, and you pay your own way to China. You pay everything in China. You don't get paid to go to China. You get there and you might not even have a conference." So it's a very scary thing, and it's happened to many, many people. Your presentation should be, depending on what you're going to be doing, it would be a 15 to 20 minute lightning round. They might ask you to do a 60-minute or a 90-minute, maybe a 75-minute conference presentation. So really going to need to look at what the podium presentations for that conference are going to be required. When you are doing a slide presentation up on stage on a podium, you need to make sure that your fonts are going to be appropriate for them to be able to see on your slides. And this is different than a poster. So your large font size in the title should be 36 or larger. Your smaller font size in your text should be 22 to 28. Your typeface should be Calibri, sans serif, or Arial. Your bullet points should be present and no running sentences. It's nothing worse than having a slide presentation and the whole slide is filled with sentences. You lose people. They can't even read it fast enough. And then you want contrasting colors, dark text, light background, or light text and dark background. So if you look at the slide that I have a very light background. I have different blocks here that have darker color, and then I have the letters in a color that's going to pop on the darker color. So you want to make sure that you have that contrasting color combination. For an effective slide presentation, use your special effects very sparingly. Someone doesn't want to see a bunch of stuff on your slides. Okay, you're bullet pointing, you're just leaving one or two things on your slides. You want to be consistent in font size and type. One of my biggest pet peeves when I watch somebody's slide presentation is if they have inconsistent font sizes and typesetting. I'll look at that and I'll say, that was just sloppy. Why did you do all of your font sizes or all of your typing, your text is small and then some's large and then some small, nothing's lining up. Your font size looks different, it's just messy. And you don't want it to be like that. You don't want any spelling or grammatical errors. We talked about that earlier, a big no-no. Proofread before you present, as we said before, and usually you should have one slide for 1 minute of lecture. So you should be able to get through one slide in 1 minute. So if you have 49 slides, that's 49 minutes of a lecture. If you are told that your lecture can only be 55 minutes, then you need 55 slides. And you want to know how long you have for questions. So if they say you have 50 minutes and 10 minutes for questions, you only want 50 slides. So it's one slide per minute. We talked about citing your photographs or your graphics. Some can be downloaded without permission, some are free, some need permission. When in doubt, just cite it. Make sure you do that. And citations are, you can just put the website at the bottom. Down here, if there's any questions, someone will know that you did look it up and you did cite it appropriately. Don't use clip art. Clip art is on the right side here, where it looks like, the guy's outlined in black and the wording is in black. It's not a professional item for a slide presentation or even a poster. You want to make sure you use professional graphics instead. So when you look at graphics, you look on the left at this beautiful Dalmatian who's just spotted in all these wonderful colors. And on the right, in this lady who's putting the colors on this little girl's face. These are graphics. Clip art and graphics are completely different. And you want to avoid animations or use them very sparingly. If you need to use an animation, don't put it on every slide. Use it on maybe only one slide. You can also add charts and graphs, and they really help to tell your story. Just like I told you on the poster, they tell the story on your slides, and you can convert a lot of your statistics for research or on your data to graphs or charts. And this helps the reader and the audience to be able to look at this and see where the highlights are. So make sure that you are using charts or graphs that are going to tell your story, and that you use colors that are going to pop on your slides like this does. You can also add a video, but sometimes they play and sometimes they don't. It just depends, but it's a good supplement to your content. So it's conference day and you're up next. And what are you going to do and how are you going to present? So this is just a picture of me presenting my podium presentation at a conference when we were in Kentucky. And how do you open? What do you want to say? How do you start out presenting? Well, you can start out by introducing yourself, telling them where you're from, or somebody might be already doing that for you. And then when you get up there, you just start talking. So you want to present effectively. You want to rehearse beforehand, maybe do it in front of a family member, use the presentation mode in PowerPoint. Best speakers talk slow. There's nothing worse than going to a conference and having someone run through a slide presentation and you can't even grasp what they're talking about. Pause often to allow the main points to sink in, and this just helps them to really think about, do I want to ask any questions about this? Vary your sentence length and don't speak in monotone. You want to raise and lower your voice. You don't want to talk like this and just drone on and on and on, because your audience will be very bored with you. Sometimes when you're presenting, you don't feel very confident and you're concerned if you're presenting appropriately, if people are listening to you, if your content is getting through to people, and you really need to act confident and you'll feel confident. And I found over the years of presenting that when I first started doing it, I felt very uncomfortable, and I built that confidence up over the time. But I remember someone saying to me, stand tall, act like you know it, even if you don't know it, and you'll feel confident and you'll act confident. And it is true. And most of the time you're going to know your content. So you'll be very confident about your content. What you're going to be uncomfortable with is presenting it in front of so many people. You need to maintain eye contact and look at the audience and scan the room. Don't focus on just one person. I was at a conference just recently and the speaker focused completely on one person in the audience the entire time. And that's not really a good thing to do. You need to look around, you need to scan the audience, you need to look at their facial expressions, and just kind of moving your head from left to right and looking around. And don't look at the slides the entire time. That's the worst thing you can do. You should know your information. You should know what's on your slides, and you should not be reading from them, and you should not be looking at them the entire time. And last but not least, you can share your slides. Sometimes we share them in emails. It'll be a lot less costly than handouts. And then the other thing, as I just said, don't read your slides to the audience. It's boring. You're going to lose them. The worst thing you can do is stand there and read your slides word for word for word. You're going to lose your audience. Your audience is going to be saying, you don't know the content. You didn't prepare. So make sure that you do know your content and you don't look at your slides constantly. And I found this slide and I love it. Yeah, if you could quit reading word for word off your PowerPoint slides, that would be great. And I think this is just what we were talking about. All right, so now that we've got the podium and the poster presentation information done, I want to talk to you about the Florida Nurse Practitioner Network poster and podium requirements. And this is very specific to you if you are going to be submitting an abstract for a podium or a poster. Your presentation must impact APRN practice. We are not looking for general nursing information. We are looking for advanced knowledge information, something that's going to impact your practice as an advanced practice nurse. You also must be an FNPN member in order to submit and have your poster or your podium presentation accepted. We talked a little bit about what the title should look like on a poster and on a podium and that type of thing on the slides. But for our requirements, our title, you should have no more than 15 words in length for the title of your poster or your podium. You should have objectives, and you must list at least 3 objectives. If you list only 2, you're not going to have your presentation accepted. You need to list at least 3, and if there is pharmacology in the poster or the presentation, we would like you to put an RX next to that objective so we know that you are giving, we are going to be giving pharmacology credits for that. You need to have at least 3 key words related to your presentation. What we mean by that is, for an example, if you are doing something on intimate partner violence, you may want to have one key word as abuse, maybe another key word as intimate partner violence, another key word as reporting, something like that. I'm just kind of throwing some things out there, but you need to have 3 keywords related to your presentation. You need to describe 2 learning outcomes. They must be learning outcomes, and they should be measurable. And you should begin each one of those outcomes with a word from Bloom's taxonomy, and they really should be higher level outcomes. So I put a slide in here on Bloom's taxonomy so you can look at this. So the words you might think about using at a create level would be to design or construct or to develop or to formulate or to investigate. If you're looking at evaluating something, appraise, defend, judge, select, support, value, analyzing, differentiate. We would like you to differentiate between something, or contrast, or distinguish, or examine something. So we would like you to have it at a higher level than have it at a remember or an understand or an applied level, because we're looking at higher level learning here. The abstract has very concise and specific requirements. You must include accurate and current evidence-based information. Okay, that is what we're looking for. Your abstract text needs to be a minimum of 200 words or a maximum of 300 words. If you put in 100 words, it will not be accepted. If you put in 400 words, it's not going to be accepted. You need to have a minimum of 200 and a maximum of 300. Use word count on your computer to make sure that you have the correct word count. You need to verify your spelling, your punctuation, and your grammar before submission. We did talk pretty detailed about that. All of your abstracts must include the following sections. You need to have a background. You need to have methods. You need to have results. You need to have conclusions. And it can be adapted as appropriate for clinical case scenarios. Maybe you're doing something that you need to just talk about the pharmacology, the non-pharmacology, the clinical implications. But we want you to make sure that you're including those in your sections. Some of the other presenting requirements are that you need to include a brief outline of your podium or your poster presentation. That needs to be included when you submit. You need to make sure that you are including your first and last name as the author. We want your credentials, and your CV must demonstrate expertise in the subject matter. That's very important. Your CV should be able to tell us that you do know what you're talking about, that you've practiced this, that you've written about this before, that you've presented on it before, something like that. The following is not going to be accepted. Any industry-sponsored submissions will not be accepted, and any personal promotion of books, products, or services will not be accepted. If all of the above criteria are not met, your submission will not be reviewed. The committee will not be looking at it if it does not meet the criteria, and any submissions after the deadline will not be accepted. So if you have any questions regarding the FNPN conference and the content for abstract submission, you can contact Jen Koretsky. She is our education chair. I have listed her email here if you do need to contact her. And good luck to everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at our FNPN conferences in the future.